Intelligence officials keep saying there's no evidence to suggest ISIS is plotting some large-scale 9/11 type attack on the U.S.
DHS is unaware of any specific credible threat to the U.S. homeland from ISIL.
Yet this is what we keep hearing from members of Congress.
Well, I do think they present the greatest threat we've seen since 9/11.
ISIS is a direct threat to the United States of America.
This president needs to rise to the occasion before we all get killed back here at home.
Given those warnings, along with some alarmist media coverage, it should come as no surprise nearly half of the country thinks the U.S. is in greater danger of a major terrorist attack now than it was before September 11th. Many intelligence analysts would say that's an overreaction.
There's no question it's a big regional threat. It's destabilizing. But its threat to the U.S. at home is quite limited.
We've heard plenty of comparisons between ISIS and the masterminds of 9/11, and there are similarities. ISIS is, after all, a former al-Qaeda affiliate. But when you compare ISIS to how pre-9/11 al-Qaeda operated, a very different picture emerges. Bin Laden's group had already pulled off major attacks around the world, including the first World Trade Center bombing. So far, ISIS hasn't demonstrated it's capable of anything on that scale in the U.S. ISIS not only lacks the ability, it appears to lack the motivation to mount such a major attack. The group is pretty preoccupied in Syria and Iraq, trying to fulfill its stated goal of creating an Islamic caliphate. As the New York Times reports, the ISIS propaganda machine has strikingly few calls for attacks on the West, the notable exceptions being the threats made in the beheading videos. Experts say the bigger concern is an individual carrying out a lone wolf attack, something like we saw with the Boston Marathon bombings. And while such an attack is certainly plausible, it's more likely ISIS will want to retain those fighters, according to Human Rights First Michael Quigley. He wrote for The Hill, ISIS cannot yet afford to have those fighters depart the battlefields in Iraq and Syria, for to do so jeopardizes their most important objective, their raison d'etre, the Islamic State itself. For his part, here's how the president has characterized the ISIS threat.
Left unchecked, these terrorists could pose a growing threat beyond that region, including to the United States.
The key word being could. As The Atlantic's Peter Beinart writes, the critical question as the U.S. launches a war against ISIS that will likely take years and have myriad unforeseen consequences is what could actually means. For Newsy, I'm Elizabeth Hagedorn, multiple sources, a broader view.